Have you ever planned a family vacation or an extended family reunion? You're going to be really excited to hear today's Curran Crew podcast. This is Tom Curran, and today Kari and I take a look at a recent family reunion extended weekend getaway that went maybe not quite as planned. You're going to hear some engaging stories, hopefully a little bit of humor, but lots of insight into how to plan well for a family getaway weekend. Welcome to the Curran Crew podcast. Let's get started. I know, Lord, we're praying for miracles. That's what I was going to say.
You tried to...
But I held back.
I held
back. I didn't want to stumble into
sarcasm
or what could be perceived as sarcasm, and maybe there's a little blend in there.
Isn't that funny, the energy that we feel towards each other's in-laws?
What are you talking about? Wait a minute. What are you saying here? Is this confession time, or what are you...
No, some of our arguments, discussions in marriage have been about your siblings or, in-laws or vice versa. My siblings, how you've shared about them. And it's just the reality of family where you get to get up close and personal, and you have relationships where everything isn't smooth running, but it's a good thing.
Well, I know that when I think about our kids and I pray for their spouses, I'm praying for their spouses' families. And I know that one of the things that I'm going to be instilling in my kids as they consider their own discernment of a spouse is don't just look at the spouse, because the spouse is doing his or her very best to be at their best. You got to go look at that spouse in the context of his or her family of origin. Where did they come from? Because you're going to see them more in their native environment, their natural habitat. There's so much that I would have learned about you, known about you, had I spent more time with you in the midst of your family, and vice versa.
Yeah,
and I think
that's
we
probably
discovered
a good thing that we did do that. No, but I know how much you love your family, and I love my family, and God brought us together. He brings families together, and it's the good and the bad, and nobody's perfect, but it's just funny to me how we are very defensive of our own family, and how you and I can get into discussions about that. It just is a cute thing. And the other thing, as you're mentioning that, Tom, is now I have sisters who are mother-in-laws. They're no longer having a mother-in-law, but they have several sons that are married or daughters that are married. And now they are dealing on the other end of it as being a mother-in-law with daughter-in-law, sons-in-law. So yes, we are definitely going to be praying for our future daughter and son-in-laws.
Well, I've already invested quite a bit in the lives of my future son-in-laws. Having 7 daughters, some of my girls are going to get married.
How have you invested?
I've invested years.
I'm trying to think. Is this like a wedding fund or?
No. You remember that when we moved out here, a few short years after we were married, the reality was that we were near your family, and there was regular, ongoing visits to your family. And I raised up for myself this ideal that I would relate to your father the way that I wanted my future son-in-laws to relate to me.
So is this like payback? Like you're like pay it forward?
Pay it forward. Okay. That was an investment. It's so
Does
funny.
Does that work?
Well, I don't know.
No,
it's
that's
kind of
great,
like
Tom.
It's kind of a playoff of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's like do unto others the way that you hope those future others will do unto you when they have that chance. But no, really, I did have that very clearly in mind. I think I remember saying that to you, that you would sometimes recognize that I was extending myself quite a bit towards your dad.
Yes, you and to my mom too. And you really are an amazing, wonderful son-in-law.
Oh, go on. Well, and I said to you, you know what? I know it's not easy being an in-law, and I'm like, one day our home, if God blesses us, you're going to bless us with some sons-in-laws and maybe daughters-in-laws. And I'm thinking, well, how do I want them to relate to me? let me, even now, it's like I'm setting an example for people who don't exist.
Okay, now if I play it to my side, how am I treating my father and mother-in-law?
Thank you, Jesus.
See, now I'm afraid that all
Finally,
my
you're
kids are
asking
going to
the
move
question.
away from me. I'm going to have that ache in my heart that grandmother has, that all her grandkids are out here. And I do a terrible job of sending photos and gifts and packages. I'm trying to get better, but and even just communicating physically, taking our kids out to see them is a hard thing to do. So anyhow, okay, but this
Well,
is not our show.
Yeah, that's not the topic today, but it does circle around the topic, which is really, we every week are talking about, God loves families. God built the human community with a fundamental cell called family. And we know how important that is. We know how challenging it is to live that well. Well, today we want to focus in on one area. And we kind of joke about it because it involves in-laws. And that is, have you ever considered having a family reunion? Not just a family reunion where folks that are in an area go gather at a restaurant and that's the reunion, but rather going away together. Going away, taking a vacation together, going away on a trip together, or camping or whatever. In this instance, it's doing some kind of getaway weekend or extended weekend where you're going to be living in the same basic area. Like in this instance, we rented a few homes in this
It was kind of like
vacation
a
area.
compound.
Like a compound, yeah. That doesn't sound very good.
I know.
It's kind of like a prison, yeah, and you felt trapped.
Suffocated.
So, yeah, yeah. And the concept was, well, we were going to all get away together for several days, and this was presented under the banner of a reunion. So you got many siblings, and let's invite them all to come, and bring spouses and children and come together, really centered around your mom. And we'll talk a bit about that. But the concept was, let's get away together and let's spend some time together during the summer. So this was what happened for us last weekend.
Yes, and we happened to stumble into this darling town. Do you know how you just come upon a great, I don't know, walking trail or a fantastic restaurant or maybe a jazz band? Just somehow you fall into, oh, I never knew this existed. We came across this town called Seabrook and I fell in love with it. And we didn't stay there when Tom and I went away on our spring break, family time, but I found a couple of places there and my family was convinced that this would be the greatest weekend of their life.
You convinced the family. Don't say it in passive voice. The voice of God convinced them. They were convinced. No, you convinced them.
And everyone was really excited to do this. I think 8 of us went away, 8 siblings, and a couple are out of town, weren't able to make it. And it was really to honor my mom and to make her wish, her desire come true. And it's not that she said, Kari, would you please organize this? But I know in the depth of her heart, as she's getting older, she's able to spend less and less time with us because we're so busy with our own growing families. And there's just something so special when you are together and you're overnighting and you are able to wake up together and have coffee and do the bonfire at night and go to bed together and stay up late and talk and play games. And there's just a beautiful way in which families bonded together during that time. So all my siblings that were able to go were really excited to do this, and we all pitched in, and it was a great time.
So today we're going to break open, and we have 8 points. And the first point is that getting away together as an extended family, beyond your own family, to include your siblings and grandmother and grandfather, if they're still around. So that sense of the generations going away together is very valuable. It's important. So that's our first point, and now we're going to try to make the case why. Because unfortunately, this isn't one of those.
Obvious.
It's not self-evident, dear. It is not self-evident.
I'm laughing because a couple of the brother-in-laws weren't able to make it, and it's a little overwhelming to go away with 8 in-laws and their families and be in this location together. And I feel like even though the kids had a great, fantastic time, and the DeLorenzo family enjoys each other. I love being with my sisters. It's not always easy if you are an in-law and you're more of an introvert, because we are more, I think most of us just tend to be more extroverted. That might just happen with big families. I'm not sure, but
Well, let's answer that question, why. And so why is it so important? And the first statement we'll make is that kids are going to learn things. They're going to learn things about family in a very powerful and distinct way when you go away together with your family. That they're just not going to learn to that same extent with that same sort of power as can happen when you actually get away together on a weekend. So that's one of the goods that is at stake, one of the goods that can be realized in the life of your family. But there is a cost to achieve that good.
yeah, not just financial costs. There's the time, the sacrifice, the effort, because we had to give up a couple of tournaments that weekend. And, we didn't have to travel far. It was just 2 hours. But sometimes family reunions take place 6, 7, 8, 10 hours away. And it's not just for 2 or 3 days. The travel involved requires a full 10 days. And so here, your spouse is giving up their special vacation time or that time that you would spend with just your immediate family to put up the feet of their wife or husband and say, yes, I will be with your family during this time. And that's really a sacrifice.
It does. It means the willingness to set aside your own priorities, your own maybe preferences, right? So you think about, okay, I don't have that much vacation time. And so I'm going to set aside some of my vacation time, those precious 4 days, precious few.
Well, this
days.
is why we did it on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's true.
I didn't
Yes.
really want to interrupt anybody's precious week of whatever they were doing.
Yeah, so the Thursday through Sunday, and it was a sacrifice because it was, well, I'm not going to only be spending time with you and the kids, but we're going to be thrown into the midst of 7 of your siblings plus their spouses and kids, well, if they can make it. And that was part of the concept was, let's do this, let's plan this far enough ahead so that people can set this time aside, hold it in reserve, even though that's going to mean making a sacrifice.
And also sacrifice of effort, just having to pack up all the kids and the food and put time into getting the place and a schedule and communicating out all that was going to happen. I mean, that really took time and effort, but it was a great sacrifice.
Well, and this is what, and the kids feel it, because the kids aren't all necessarily just jumping in and saying, I'm going to sign up for this, because they're going to be missing time with friends. They're going to be missing some of their own activities. And so, but what are we doing? We're sending them a message where we prioritize, where we sacrifice, where we devote ourselves is what's important. And so what we're saying to them is your family, your extended family is important.
And I think, you talk about Tom wanting to be a model. What do we expect when we are in our 70s and 80s and we're grandparents and we're going to want our kids to do this for us, right? Like I did for my mom. I'm going to want our children to step up and say, Mom and Dad, we got this. We're going to get together. We're going to, whether or not we all get along perfectly.
We realize this is important.
This is a value that you have and that we have. And there's something about that that's so precious. And we want that legacy to be built. And I think, one thing I do with my girls is we do go away for an overnight in the summer. And my heart's desire has always been, I want them to know how valuable these relationships are, and just to make that extra little effort in sacrifice in all sorts of ways to do that.
Kari, what can happen like in a very, very big picture way on a getaway weekend is something that plays itself out in smaller sacrifices.
What do you mean, Tom?
So I think about those times, those rare occasions where I get back to Boston, where my mom and dad are, and my brothers and sisters, and my nephew and nieces. And I have a huge number of first cousins and some uncles and aunts that are still living back there.
But every time from when we first got married, they would make an effort to see us. And they made this extra effort to drive like 45 minutes to come and spend a dinner with us, just to say hi and check in a half hour hanging out. And I just think that is a sense of family committedness, connectivity. This is important. And it always just touched my heart that there was something about it that I wanted to capture. I wanted to hold on to as we grow our family.
Well, it expresses that sense of value. This is precious to us. This is valuable to us. This is part and parcel of who we are. And even though the kids now have their own lives, they're no longer like in the home and they have to be dragged along where mom and dad go. No, they have their own lives. They have their own homes. They have their own families. And yet they still are drawn into being a family with us.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's so striking is they had jobs, they had homework, they had sporting events, they were busy, and yet they always at least stopped by for a half hour to a couple hours to say hi. It was always a priority because I'm thinking of all the excuses that my kids have given me or will begin to give me as they get more busy with life as to why they can't,
why
meet
they can
up.
peel off of
They don't need
family
to go to
gatherings.
they don't need to go to the Easter gathering. They don't need to go to the Thanksgiving gathering. They have to miss out on the Christmas party or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't want to allow my kids to give me these weak excuses. They're weak because what's important? What are we building? What are we about when, a homework or a mismanaged schedule takes the place of being together with aunts and uncles and grandparents. And I see this within my own family quite a bit where I feel actually somewhat disconnected with some of my nieces and nephews because they're not made or required to be at events. And I'm not talking every weekend, I'm just talking, 3-4 times a year where you have a big family gathering. And it's just sad for me. It's a disappointment in my own heart just to miss out on that opportunity.
Okay, so let's talk about what's at stake in that, because there's a natural way that happens. As people begin to have their own lives, they begin to become so busy that their focus is away from their family of origin. And there's a way that, okay, there's a naturalness to that, but there's something deeper at work here. And so let's go to our third point, and that has to do with, in the end, why is it really so important to think about saying, can we get away together as an extended family? Can we get away together? What really is at stake? And it has to do with what holds all of those people together in common, and it is their name. It's the family name. There was a movie that came out, 15 years ago about this quiz show in England where this fellow became in prominence because he was answering these questions right and advancing in how much money he was making. And it became found out that he had cheated. He had been given the questions, and he confronted his father, who was this famous man, and the father and son had this argument, and the son was saying, look, this isn't about you. This is about me. And he's like, no, this is about our name. It's about our family name. This is what's at stake here, is that your name is your identity. And there's something about your identity that is associated with your name, with your, here's the word in theology, it's in your tradition. It's where you've come from. It's in your roots. Somehow you don't discover or fully live your own identity until you really know where you've come from.
Wow, Tom, because that seems lost. Like as you're saying this, it sounds powerful, beautiful. It sounds right within me. It's truth that is ringing in my heart, but yet I don't feel like we're always looking towards the past.
Well, yeah, we live in a time that says what? Your identity is something that you determine for yourself, and it is achieved through having a vision, which is always pointed towards the future.
And goals and expectations.
Right, rather than saying that it comes from
creating
your
your
past.
future.
Well, and I like that. Without a vision, the people perish. People love to quote that proverb. And I say, well, without a tradition, people are not born. They don't know who they are.
They don't know where they've come from.
They don't know where they've come from.
Awesome.
John chapter 13, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. But do you remember what it says at the beginning of that? It says, Jesus, knowing that he had come from the Father and was going to the Father, got up, took off his robe, tied a towel around himself, and then washed his disciples' feet. He was able to accomplish his mission because he knew that he had come from the Father. It's when we know where we've come from. When we know that we've traced back that sense of identity in our own family, that's close to godliness. that your family isn't God, but your family comes from God, right? God the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth takes its name, Ephesians chapter 3. God is involved in family. And one of the ways that shows up is having a sense of almost loyalty to your name, a sense of stewardship. You've been entrusted with a name.
It's interesting, and this isn't necessarily about family getaways, but I have an uncle, my Uncle Con, who is always bringing me articles and photos and stories about where he's come from and who he is. He's my mom's brother. And he just has this stewardship over who we are and what we're about. I would never know about some of these stories unless he had this kind of ache in his heart to share them. And even as my mom is getting older, she is recalling stories from her past, and she loves to talk about and reminisce about when she was younger. Not even, in the last 10 years or, when my father was around, but even as a young child or when she was in, grade school, college. And it's just interesting. I don't know if as you get older, you recall your past more because you're connecting your past to where you're headed. But it just struck me the other day as I reflected on them, how they were sharing more about their past than I'd ever heard them share before.
Well, Kari, that's really beautifully, it brings us right to that fourth point, that where are you going to get the most condensed, powerful expression of that name, that family name, that sense of rootedness in tradition. That tradition means you've been handed over. That which I've received, I hand on. Well, where did you receive your name DeLorenzo? You received it from your mom and dad. And so it's really the patriarchs, the matriarchs of a family that are the deepest caretakers and holders of that name, of that family sense of identity, which brings us again to the answer to the question, why is it so important to do something like a getaway weekend? Well, get away with, don't get away from, get away with with that matriarch, with that patriarch, to be able to be around them. And in a very beautiful way, your mom was the sort of the still point at the center of the universe of that weekend.
Yes.
And she was the glue of the family. And so often matriarchs and patriarchs are that, right? How many families just float apart when that matriarch or patriarch dies? So you pointed out in your own family situation, here you have your mom who's getting older, and this is a chance to have that glue be able to exert the power of linking you all together.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know what it'll be like with mom not here, because I think sometimes we take it for granted. But I do have cousins where their parents have both gone on, and there is this sense of loss because now they don't have, the patriarch or the matriarch handing on the stories, handing on that sense of identity, being the glue, the
just
center.
Being that center. And there is a gravitational pull to a person. And that gravitational pull is somehow, again, condensed down to the essence of who they are. So I say to you, Kari, for you to be faithful to your name, DeLorenzo, that name that you were born with, we have to go back and say, what did it mean for your mom and your dad to be who they are? What did they radiate? What were the core truths that they radiated in their lives? Let's try to identify, Kari, what's that word that condenses your mom?
I said mass. It was just immediate. The idea of going to mass, of encouraging us to go to mass. I get phone calls. It's your feast day. It's your son's feast day. Are you going to mass? It's your daughter's birthday. It's your anniversary. Where are you going to mass? Can I meet you at mass? It's Monday. There's mass at St. Francis Hospital. It's Wednesday. We just saw her last night, meeting up with her to go to mass with all the grandkids. And there's masses every month at the cemetery. And she'll incentivize my kids to meet us there because she'll be giving out a few dollars to all those kids, grandkids who go to mass. Even my nieces and nephews that aren't practicing Catholics will come and get a few bucks. And it's just who she is this love of her faith. And it's centered around the Eucharist, which is what a gift. That's not necessarily every family's identity, but we've just been given this almost stewardship that's been passed on to me. You can see now how it radiates throughout our own families, my other siblings that love faith and love the church and love the Eucharist.
Well, and we did the same thing when I tried to say, well, what about my dad, just for instance? And I said, well, it's not one word, but it is a phrase. And for my dad, the phrase is, you just do what you got to do. And that meant he will work hard. He will work as long as it takes. He will work without complaining and without counting the cost. This man works. And
this is why you have 3 jobs, 4 jobs, wait, 5.
Well, you stop and you say, what, and my mom along with him, it just
yes,
said,
they
she
are
is
hardworking.
someone who works hard. So there's something about the essence of being a Curran that says, you just do what you got to do. And I look at myself, I look at my siblings, and I say, wow, we're Currans. We just do what we got to do. And it's just like, wow, there really is something to when you gather around those patriarchs, there is something that is exuding, something radiating that is part of your legacy. It's part of that sense of this is who I am. This is what I'm about in the world. And that can show up in one of those family weekends.
Yes. I mean, and that also shows up in, like when my father passed away and we were all gathered at the funeral, this was 8 years ago, there was just the sense of, you are a DeLorenzo, this is who you are, this is your identity. And it was a sense of pride, but it was also a sense of sadness, like, I wish my family knew this better. I wish we knew it to the more fully. I wish it lived in us in a way that was more
day-to-day, regularly.
intentional, like get away every summer for a family vacation getaway to celebrate who we are and to really encapsulate what we are about. And it almost makes me want to say, okay, that's my family, where I came from, where you came from. What's our current, our immediate family motto, sense of vision, mission? Who are we? What are we passing on to our own children? I mean, and even people listening that are young parents, this is something that God calls us to, is to identify and to name and to pray about, what's your mission as a family?
Well, and I think about, so a funeral is something that pulls people together as a sort of a bittersweet event. I think of weddings. Because weddings are something that, it's much more planned for. It's often just a very joyful thing. But the pressure, right? What are they, the mother of the bride, right? Some of the pressure is, it's the family on display.
I don't even know if mothers realize that, Tom, but you're right. I think, okay, so, and not only do you see the family that you're going to celebrate because you know the bride or the groom, you typically don't know both, but you see them all of a sudden being bonded or united with another family. And it's so distinct to see 2 families on display because you can see how they show up.
So one of the gifts that comes when everyone's away is that I say time is protected, right? So often, like, you get together for, let's say it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or some other special holiday or anniversary. What ends up happening? You have people rushing in. You have people
all the women are preparing the meal, getting things organized. The kids,
men too. Come on now.
Sorry, here's your beer. Here's the ball game.
Wait a minute.
Stop.
Honey, we'll talk offline. Okay, so here they are, and you're together, and it's kind of this intense being together, and then you're fleeing the building.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's great, but it's like quick.
Yes.
You don't really get into any great conversations or...
and I contrast that, for instance, so when I go back to Boston and I've got some of the kids with me, because it's typically not both of us and all of us, so if I have got a few kids with me, one of the great gifts is we get there and we wake up in the morning and there we are. Hi, Mom and Dad. Hi, Grandmother, Grandfather.
And everyone's in their pajamas.
Breakfast, coffee, hang out. You're not in a hurry.
Yeah.
You're just together, and you're not fighting for time against everybody else.
That's a key thing, is you're not fighting with 8 other families.
And schedules and constraints that say we got to go. So what's one of the great gifts of being able to get away together is you're not in a hurry. You don't have to be in a hurry. You can just take time together.
Yes.
And that's where some of the gifts, because you're going to be together over the extended time, really get to show up.
Yeah, and then we got to have conversations with my sisters that I don't really talk to them on the phone much. I just don't make that a priority or the time because of life and its busyness. But I do talk to them, and we do communicate, but to be able to just have random, funny conversations, recall our history, share stories with the grandkids.
And you're all physically in the same room. And you're able to just have a cup of coffee and kick back and just visit, and then get another cup of coffee and visit, and say, "Tom, go wash the dishes." Hey, Tom, how are the kids doing? You got them all? We're visiting. We're having sister time.
Oh, you're a great servant.
Gifts come up. The different gifts of your siblings can also show up in these settings.
Yeah. What I loved about our getaway, gifts. I have a sister who loves to cook, and we were kind of texting back and forth as to who's going to do. So we had different families do dinner each night, like pair up and cook for, I don't know, there's 50 of us, 40 of us. I can't remember. But my sister and I don't like to cook. And we were like trying to pair up with somebody who loves to cook. And my sister Martha loves to cook. And I didn't realize how much she enjoys cooking. I mean, I know every event they have at their house.
She's really good, too.
Is amazing. And all the food is just out of this world good. She's an amazing cook. And she can cook for a lot of people and it still tastes good. But she brought her whole kitchen. I mean, she brought seasonings, she brought pots and pans, she brought her own set of knives. I mean, and then we were making pies, we were making apple crisp. She made this incredible salmon dinner. And she really loves to cook with fresh everything. And I was looking at her and go, Martha, I did not realize you were all about cooking. She goes, oh, I'd cook every meal. I'm like, oh, you will? Okay, can I sign you up for next year? Because it was such a gift. It was such a treat.
Well, and it brought her joy, and it gave her a chance to use her strength to help what? Express joy and celebration and being together as a family.
And
Pope Francis talked about that recently, that don't just be a family that's so focused on working and getting caught up in the busyness of life. Take time to celebrate. Take time to be together and enjoy each other.
Yeah, and I mean, we went and helped her, and she would tell us what to do. And my other sister has a gift of making great cocktails. So
it's a very specific gift. It's very valuable in narrow settings.
You can get that cocktail just right. And you definitely need one or two when you're away with all your family. But around 4 o'clock, she would bring out the drinks. We'd be in the kitchen cooking. And it was just a beautiful way to celebrate each other. And I have another brother who's just the ringleader of the kids, and he can get my kids to do the craziest things, and he
Uncle
is just
Bobby,
outrageous with his vision and goals, and now has my daughter making a CD and my other daughter writing a book, and just really fun, ton of fun. I have another brother that's just great at telling stories and how are you and keeping conversation going and really trying to get into the heart of where you're at in life. He doesn't want to do the surface like snorkeling. He wants to scuba dive. And it's just a beautiful thing. And, you know, if we can focus on the gifts and not see the gaps, it can be such a more rewarding time because, believe it or not, we know each other's weaknesses.
Really?
Because...
Can we talk about those?
Well,
we don't have enough time. Okay, let's just stay focused.
I think I had to kind of pull you aside and say, honey, I need you to be a little bit more friendly. I didn't mean to, put you down, but I was like, come on, step up your game. You're such an awesome person. But around the craziness of everything and managing 9 kids, we were in a compound. And so there was no fence. So we had 2 kids that kept wandering off, and there's the ocean and there's the pool and there's a busy street. So I know Tom was constantly he was the helicopter parent.
I was on the, what do you call it, air traffic control. I was like focused on the radar screen thinking, is there going to be an accident here? Where's that plane going off course here?
Oh,
so there was a little bit of intensity until I knew the kids were locked down. But you know what? You challenged me that it's true that people's gifts can show up, but so can people's limits. And I think that some of my own limits were showing up regarding my attentiveness and willingness to be friendly and enter in. And I'm like, you know what? There's too much that went into this for me to just settle for that. So I said, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna act my way into my best self.
Awesome.
How about that?
As I handed you a cocktail.
Yeah.
Here you go, honey.
This will help.
So take the edge off.
Move you forward.
And it's really hard when it's not your immediate family. You're going to your in-laws because you're on the outside and there's a tight bond.
Isn't that when we began this program?
Well,
about
I'm just saying
in-laws?
there's a tight bond that you're trying to break into, or a lot of my in-laws will just sit on the surface and kind of hang out on the edge. They don't even want to try to break in. It's just too much work.
Mm-hmm. So staying there and saying, okay, let me not settle for that. Let me bring my, the best gifts that I if I have them, let me bring them to bear for the good of the group as well. And then there's your mom. And your mom is very different than my mom. Your mom she sat and smiled. That's all she had to do, is just sit and smile and just watch everything unfold. She loved it. Now, she's like my mom, that in a little bit of an earlier time in her life would be the one cooking and serving up the food, getting everything ready, stirring the pot so that the party happens. That's my mom. My mom is laughing the loudest, talking, checking on everybody and making sure everything is fine.
She's the life of the party.
She is the life of the party. That's her gift. And your mom this weekend, my picture of her is just sitting with a smile on her face. There she is, just sitting with the smile, watching everything unfold around her.
Yeah, I mean, she really enjoyed it and had said to me several times, thank you. She never again asked me to do this, but it was just something we all wanted to do to celebrate our family and to be together. So it was awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about the fruits of this. What are the fruits? So we've mentioned that there is this sense of connection to your identity that shows up in condensed ways in the matriarch and patriarch. It also shows up in the gifts that get brought out into the open in this way of this communion of persons among your siblings and the way that can show up. But what are the fruits of this when it comes to our own family life?
Well, another motive I had for us doing this, and the reason that my siblings will make an effort to do this, is we really value our kids having strong relationships with their cousins, that they get along, that they know each other, that they can have memories, shared memories together. And through the first night, we put them all together in the same rooms, so they could be together, go to bed together, wake up together, really try to force them to like each other. No, but it took the next morning, and by the time they left, they were all best cousins. And that's exactly the fruit I was hoping for. And that doesn't necessarily happen if you have cousins that are all different ages. But I have to say, when we went out to the hot tub, my nieces who are in their 20s, they were in the hot tub with my 3 little girls who are doing this, swim gymnastics show in the hot tub, jumping, getting us all wet. And it was the cutest, most fun time just to spend that with them, and for them to be able to see my little kids who they really don't know that well, because we don't get those opportunities as much. And so it was just fantastic. Even if cousins are different ages, the older kids and the younger kids, everyone comes together for game time, for fire time, for pool time. I mean, and so it doesn't really matter if you don't have a best cousin that's the same age as your child or whatever.
So there's a very distinct relationship that is the cousin relationship. You're not brothers and sisters that you share blood and name all the same, and you have to living together all the time, but neither are you just friends where you're making choices. A cousin, there's that level of sharing in, we are traced back to a same history. So there's something we share in common that binds us together, whether we like it or not. So it's not just about friendship. There's something very powerful about that relationship when you are in those younger years that helps bond you around your family, bond you around your family name. And I think that the geographic challenges that arise today with people being so mobile are making and are weakening the sense of a bond of cousins. That was something that was much more apparent generations ago, and it is still in certain parts of the country where people are more deeply rooted and are much less likely to move. But one of the things that we noticed was the way that cousins today have an opportunity to bind together in ways that we never did because of social media and the internet.
Yeah, and I have to say that a lot of my girls are on Instagram, and they are friends with all their cousins on Instagram, and there's like 15 of them, and they see graduation photos and homecoming and soccer, and we just went to church. And so it's just this great way, because I follow all of them, and I just see how they chit chat back and forth and talk about being together. And then there's grandma on Instagram who's
overseeing it all.
She had to get an iPad just so she could see all her grandkids, which was awesome that she did that. And I think the same thing with Facebook. I just saw my cousin's first grandbaby. His daughter got married. My other cousin, they had another baby. There was prayers for a sick grandchild. But even I feel connected to some extent with cousins that I don't see anymore, that are all around the country. But to talk about our own family, it's just really great to see how these cousins are connected that way, and I can see what my nieces and nephews are doing, those that are on social media.
So I love that. And I think that that's a beautiful use of the internet and a social media platform to be able to actually strengthen a family bond. There are some challenges, though, Kari. Some of the fruits aren't just direct, beautiful, go and pick the apple, but there's also the apple that's presented by the serpent. And so some of that shows up as well on the weekend. And so my point number 7 is the confiteor takes flesh.
Well, I was just praying that we were at Mass, and for some reason I smiled as I was praying it because I was thinking of some of the thoughts that I had in my head. This is, I confess to Almighty God and to you, my brothers and sisters, that I have sinned through my own faults in my thoughts and in my words, and what I've done, what I have failed to do. And just to say,
through my fault,
through my fault, just
through my
own
most
it.
grievous
Own it when you
fault.
fail. Let everyone know you failed and you're sorry. And for me, just to pray that and to remember that and to realize that we are all working our best in the gifts, in the areas where we're not gifted, to be together, to love each other. And we're just going to come up against our limits. And that's just part of family. I mean, that's also what binds us together is we all snicker and laugh at, oh my goodness, this is our mom and dad that we came from, or oh my goodness, this is our brother, this is our sister, and we can laugh about it and joke about it, but we still love each other. We still are committed to each other and to each other's goods, hopefully. And that's why that prayer was cracking me up, because I could have prayed that like every few hours, just because I would have thoughts like, oh.
Well, and you know what? That's one of the things that I know a lot of folks listening are thinking, wow, you're presenting all of the positives that come when you all go away together as a family. And you might be thinking, I can barely get through Thanksgiving with my family.
Yeah.
And the idea of actually going away, my family with their families, and wow, that's going to bring up a lot of, hurts and brokenness. It's going to exacerbate or worsen things.
Did we say it's a sacrifice? We had to swallow a lot. We had to, you just have to be very vulnerable, be willing to risk. It's not easy.
And recognize that you need to set up some boundaries, and recognize that when you're being strained and you're being emptied out of your ability to be patient and kind, you step away.
You go back to your carriage house.
And you find that sister who mixes the good drink, and you're able to then move forward. No, really, you need to be able to get some space in order to live well in that moment to the extent that you can.
Well, and I know, looking at our own kids, we see how they argue and fight. Why do we not expect that amongst our siblings? And I just have to laugh. My mom sees it constantly because we all call her when we're uptight about something.
And advocate.
This is what I think. So it's just the reality of family, and just to be aware that God has so much more for us. He doesn't want us to be in that broken, difficult situation. That there is healing and forgiveness, and we do have to go beyond our pride. And that's what it is. It's trying to bring each other to sainthood, trying to bring our marriage to sainthood, trying to bring our family to sainthood. And it's a great call, but it's not easy. It's a heroic call. No hero had an easy path.
So our last point, Kari, or actually our second to last point, is this idea that memories are made, right? If you want to have hope for the future, you lean on some of the memories that you build from the past.
Yeah, and my heart just swells with memories that I recall as a child, or back in the teenage years when we lived with my mom and dad, 9 of us in that house at that time. And just, I love the memories and the memories that we've made now with your family. So
I think of, Kari, the specific memories of times away, when we actually have gone away together, whether it was with my family, my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, or whether it was with your family and when your dad was alive, we did these family reunions or these family getaways.
Yeah, and when you look at your past, the memories that stick out the most are family vacations and family getaways. Those are just cemented in our mind and in our heart. It's not the day-to-day living during the summertime. It's actually when you went on a trip or a vacation with family.
So they have a power to help forge that sense of family love, family care, family identity, and family in faith. They really have a power to do that. And frankly, there's a lot more fun.
Yeah. We did have a great time. It was so fun.
Yes.
I can't wait to sign everyone up for next year. I'm going to send a link to this radio show. They can all hear it.
So I think, and this is the last point, it's really about investing in the future. And I know that we often make a distinction between a house and a home, right? You don't build a house, you build a home. One of the things to hold in your mind is that this concept of legacy, of investing ourselves in something that goes beyond our own line of sight, goes beyond our retirement, even goes beyond our children or our grandchildren that can be seen. We are investing in things that may take, in fact, generations to begin to unfold and mature. That image of a garden on some palatial estate that gets tended and nurtured and grows over the course of decades and scores of years and even over a century, the developing of these flowering gardens and trees. What a vision. It's a vision for a legacy that isn't just about a name and it isn't just about land. It's about a heritage of faith that's so fundamental to our Catholic identity and the concept of tradition, the handing on that goes on. Family weekends can be a part of that. Getting away together on vacation with extended families has so many benefits. And I hope and pray that you have found our walking through our own recent adventure and misadventure to be a blessing to you. Please, again, we encourage you to get to know us better by going to currancrew.tv. There you can access all of the social media platforms. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can join up with Kari on Instagram or Pinterest or our Facebook page, Tom and Kari Curran. We want to get to know your crew. We want to be able to encourage you and support you and assist you in loving your crew even better. And we hope and pray that you have blessings upon you in abundance until we connect again.
Amen.
Amen. God bless.